We are live. Hey guys, lovely to have you with us today. Thank you so much for joining us for our next Ecomm Engine webinar, the revenues in the reputation. Who comes up with these? I think it's Caitlin. Did you guys come up with this?
No, I don't think. Did we?
No, Caitlin ran a couple of ideas by, and we like anything with alliteration, so we were like, that one.
Jazzy. Yeah, fair enough. Cool. Well, I'm looking forward to this one immensely. And this is my last webinar with Quickfire, so we have to go out with a bang. So a quick introduction. The theme is going to be all around email reputation. You guys are, of course, the king and king of the inbox. So looking forward to hearing more about that.
King and king.
That's the best. I was going to say the queens, but, I guess kind of.
Well, that would also He's more a prince and I'm a king.
Okay, prince and the king. The prince and the king of inboxes. So all about if your emails aren't landing, your brand's voice is being silenced, and we are here to break it down with expert advice from the king and the prince from the Inbox Club. So first of all, can we just do some introductions? I'll start, make it easy. I'm Rose. I'm the Events and Partnerships Manager at Quickfire. James, over to you.
Yeah, hi, I'm James. I'm Creative Director. Oh, I nearly forgot my title then for a second. I'm also in Ibiza, by the way. Just throwing that in there. I'm in Ibiza. This isn't my usual backdrop. This cat is not mine. So
Ibiza cat.
Letting you know because the internet might get patchy.
Noted. Nice.
Cool. I'm Jamie. I'm Managing Director or Prince of the Inbox Club. Rose, you weren't kidding when you said you were going to put your hosting voice on. As soon as we went live, you changed. Your persona was like whoosh. You went all posh.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, you should have heard her before we pressed live.
Yeah. I went from Vicky Pollard to Julie Andrews.
Yeah, there's actually a pint of Stella just off screen.
Yeah. There is. This is not tea. Okay. Awesome. Thank you so much, guys. So let's dive straight in. So sender reputation is sort of like, well, it says here it's like your credit score for your inbox. So if you can't buy trust, you have to earn it. So let's start with reputation and brand foundation. A question for one of you, and I'm just going to throw that out. I'm just going to go one of you and let you fight it out because I don't want to be responsible for any arguments between the two of you, especially when you're not in the same country. So first of all, what is email/sender reputation in simple terms, and why does it matter to e-commerce brands?
Nice. Shall I take this one, James?
Go on then, Jamie.
Okay, let's do it. That was a good fight. So we're going to talk about two slightly different things on this webinar when it comes to sender reputation, kind of like your hard reputation and then your soft reputation. We'll explain what those are separately. But if we think about sender reputation in the more traditional sense, we're thinking about deliverability and the likelihood that you end up in someone's main inbox as opposed to spam or promotions folder, etc. And Rose, you're right in it kind of explaining it like a credit score where you kind of know whether you have a good one or bad one, and you can only really tell if you've got a good or a bad one based on the signs that you can see. Are you landing in the main inbox? And it's a little bit of a black box, and you're trying to do the right things to impact it. But what we're talking about here from a sender reputation point of view, especially the kind of that hard reputation, is are we landing in the correct place when we send our marketing emails?
Fantastic. Thank you. And what's the difference between sender reputation and an email brand?
Yeah, I was going to say, so the other form of reputation is that soft reputation, and that is what we would call the email brand. And the reason that we call it the email brand is one, because as far as we're concerned, that term hasn't been coined before, but also because email reputation could mean one of two things, as Jamie's just outlined. It could also mean the hard reputation, the deliverability stuff, the technical stuff that determines whether or not you get into a main inbox. So email brand is how are your readers perceiving your emails when they land in the inbox? Are they excited to see them? Are they rolling their eyes because they know it's going to be rubbish? How are you received in the inbox? Are you a good presence in the inbox? Are you a negative, spammy presence in the inbox? And that is fundamentally determined by how good your emails are, the kind of stuff you're sending.
Brilliant, thank you. What would you, so for me, you mentioned that and about those two, and it is the emotion that's attached to those emails. So for me, I get like some where I'm just like, oh my God, please just leave me alone. The Inky list, leave me alone, leave me alone. I never signed up for you, and I don't know how you keep adding me to your emails. Wicked Uncle, amazing. They always put dad jokes at the end of their email. 10 out of 10, would buy from them again. For you two, random questions thrown in. What's a company that you love receiving emails from? It's not allowed to be a client. It has to be one that you just personally love. You can't be a client.
Yeah, I think so. For me, there's some emails. I did a talk last night about this, a little bit about this subject, and there's a hot sauce called Truff that I like, and their emails are great because they send recipes. And, you know, it's not often just kind of like a hard sell. They'll send a recipe with like a great picture of that food. Obviously, the recipes include their hot sauce. That's, you know, obvious. But I like that because we're just offering value there. And there are a ton of ways, and I think it's the next question that we'll talk about. There are a ton of ways in which, you know, you can offer value there. But that's a good example for me. It's like, okay, how can we just go beyond just trying to sell something here? How can we offer something more, something deeper, and something of value to people?
That's such a good idea. Dad jokes or a recipe. Those are two very things. I love that. James, what about you?
So I'm going to go for a small jeans seller called Hyatt Denim. I think that's how I'm pronouncing it. It's Hiut. Amazing copy in their emails. And I am fundamentally a copywriter. So I'm not so fussed about the design of an email, but I love when the messaging is spot on. I'm actually going to read out that I've just clicked on a random email sent from them, by the way. When you asked that question, I thought, well, I better have a look. I'm going to read out the introduction to an email that I got recently. Hi there. Listen to this. Let me tell you 3 stories. They explain why this year's Makers and Mavericks might be the most important one we've ever done. Like, it's just such a lovely way. Firstly, it's first person. So it's let me tell you, not let us tell you. So we know it's a person sending this, not a company. But just like, it's story driven, straight into it. No waffle about like, oh, you know, it's been a warm July. It's just like, it's just beautifully done. So all of their emails are, for me, like an absolute clinic in how to speak to your audience like an actual person.
Those are beautiful examples. Thank you so much, guys. I love those. We'll be stealing those ideas. Thank you. Okay, so those are good sender reputations there. So let's talk about poor reputation. So how can poor reputation impact revenue beyond just lower open rates?
Yeah, I think open rate is like the obvious one, right? Because if people aren't opening your email, they're probably not purchasing. So, you know, it's the first telltale sign that you've got a bad reputation, or your reputation isn't as good as it could be. But I think there are other things to look out for, like bounce rates, etc. And when we think about getting people on our email list as an e-commerce brand, it's so common now that we offer a discount. So there'll be a pop-up and it will say, look, 10% discount, join our mailing list, etc. And there'll be a huge portion of people that are obviously just doing that. Most people, perhaps, that are just doing that for the discount. And the knock-on effect of that is that they probably won't unsubscribe either if the emails aren't for them. So you get people joining, grab the 10% discount, they stay subscribed because people are generally too lazy to unsubscribe. And then you've got this big portion of people on your list that kind of were just there for the discount, and now your emails aren't doing a good enough job at kind of retaining them, getting them purchasing again. Cool. And so the knock-on effect of that is then we have this huge unengaged portion of our list, and that's impacting our reputation, our deliverability, etc. And so that's, if we look at the first thing that happened there, it was that discount-led strategy. So how can we do something a little bit more? How can we say, okay, well, there is a discount, but also we send an email every Friday night, and it's like skincare routine, or it's a recipe for the weekend, or, you know, a bit more values, another reason for people to kind of sign up, stay engaged, and keep opening your emails.
Fantastic. Really good advice there. Just FYI with questions, thank you for keep bringing those in. I will get to those towards the end of the webinar, but thank you for sharing those. I will make sure that they get answered. Cool. So next question for you guys, keeping in with the theme of email brands. So what makes up a strong email brand, and how should brands present themselves in the inbox?
So there are it's really hard to answer this concisely because there are so many things that contribute. I mentioned a couple of them when I gave that example of Hyatt Denim, and that there are so many factors that we need to bear in mind here. But foundationally, it comes to sending emails that people want to read and engage with. So when we're looking at deliverability, which is, as Jamie mentioned earlier, a black box by design, because obviously if they gave away the secret sauce, then people could scheme that system. So we don't know exactly how much things like replies, opens, clicks, impacts deliverability. But we're fairly certain that it's the most important factor, that engagement is the most important signal to your Gmails, your Apple mails, that the emails you're sending are legit, that they're not spam, because of course spam gets no engagement. So when it comes to crafting a good email brand, we have to think from the perspective of what can we do that's actually going to get engagement. And I suppose the advice I would give is, when it comes to thinking about how to send good emails, we want to encourage brands to treat their newsletters, their emails, like they would any other content system, any other algorithm. So, we see loads of discussion and thought put into how brands present themselves on Instagram and how they present themselves on LinkedIn. And, these social platforms have whole sciences behind them. It's quite normal for a brand to embrace the fact that, okay, we're not going to be selling every time we post on TikTok. We want to create good content first on these platforms because the algorithm's going to favor us. We're going to get more visibility. And that way we can ultimately create a relationship with our audience that leads to more revenue. That entire mentality goes out the window as soon as it's applied to email. For some reason, email is still considered this cash cow that can just be rinsed and rinsed and rinsed. And actually what we want to do is encourage brands to treat their email like they would their Instagram feed, to say, okay, if I send better content here, we're gonna get better deliverability. We're gonna have people staying on our emails for longer, clicking on our emails, opening our emails, replying to our emails. All of these things that tell Google, that tell Apple, that tell Outlook, whatever it is, that what we're sending is legit, and the people we're sending to actually want to read our stuff.
Brilliant. And linking on to that, so like you say, there's that kind of and I do see it with emails where people kind of have this idea that whatever they're sending out, people are just opening it and automatically engaged in it. And I'm guilty of that. When I send an email out, and it doesn't get an open rate, I'm always quite shocked. I'm like, it took ages writing that. And it's just this assumption that everyone else is as on it with their emails as I am. So looking at the kind of the tone and the visuals that go into an email, rather than if you are someone who just sort of quickly gets an email out without really thinking about it too much. How does kind of the tone and the visuals impact trust and engagement in terms of keeping that consistency going?
Yeah, I think it's obviously super important. I think having consistency, so people, when they hear from you, they know what to expect, is important. It's the reason why the front pages of newspapers have hardly changed over the course of decades, right? You always have the same format. It's always kind of headline and big picture, and then smaller stories. So people will have to be able to kind of jump in and know what to expect, I think, from emails. There are kind of three things that we want to do really when getting that consistency, and brand voice is one of them, and we can afford to be a bit more personable, a bit more conversational with our emails than we can in other channels, because it's one-to-one, and we have to remember personalization is a whole other topic we can talk about another time, but our goal should be to try and make our emails as relevant to each single person on our list as we can. So brand voice is one thing. And James had that great example there from that jeans brand. Storytelling is another one. So using great storytelling is a great way to kind of get people kind of hooked on your emails and coming back. These things don't have to be linked to necessarily like a hard sell either. And then offering value, we touched on that as well. So, recipes, tips, etc. So brand voice, super important. Storytelling and offering value. I would say those are three things that you could probably do straight away to kind of improve and make your emails a bit better.
Cool.
Actually, can I add a fourth as well?
Yeah. Go on.
I would add the fourth, which is becoming increasingly important, which is accessibility. If you can make your emails accessible, that's a fantastic way to build an email brand and also to tick the deliverability box as well. Accessibility ought to have been a lot more important than it has been, but it's becoming incredibly important this year. There's a European law that's passed that obliges businesses with 10 or more employees to adhere to certain accessibility principles when it comes to their digital comms. And we can only imagine that those rules are going to continue to profligate over to the UK and beyond as well. So if you're a brand, you are leaving money on the table if you're not making your emails accessible. So I would thoroughly recommend that. There's loads of resources online. We won't go into too much depth in it here, but we're talking things like people with visual impairments, for example, ensuring that the color contrasting you're using is accessible for people that might have some visual impairments. There's all kinds of boxes that can be ticked. It's not a huge amount of effort, but it makes a huge difference. And most importantly, people on your list will need it as well. So you're quite literally preventing them potentially from engaging with your brand if you're not doing those things.
Cool. Got you. That's some really good points, Fraser. Thank you. And we have got some more questions coming in, which again, I will get to at the end, just so these people don't feel like I'm ignoring them. I promise I'm not. Cool. Thank you. So, okay. So we've talked about some good steps there and ideas. By the way, I've got like everyone in the world seems to be slacking me at the moment. Can you hear the notifications?
I thought that was me. I was searching away.
Cool. I'm going to shut this up. There you go. Hopefully, I've just tried to delete that. I've got WhatsApp going. I've got Slack going. Right. Okay. We'll hopefully they won't make any more noise. So we've talked about kind of some really good practical stuff there, and about kind of the branding, the identity side. Let's talk about the bad stuff when mistakes happen, which they do in any part of a business, including emails. Question: have you guys ever like not just kind of personally, but do you have like any examples of when you've seen like a bad email mistake made or something you've seen that then has kept you up in a cold sweat at night? Have you got any like examples?
Yeah, I think James has a pretty good example, which I'll let him elaborate on in a sec, which is relevant to this webinar. Involving quickfire. But I think there are like mistakes that people make in email marketing that don't really matter that much, and James's example is one of those. Actually mistakes are a really good thing for engagement sometimes, or most of the time. And James has gone so far as to say you should plan to make one mistake a year when it comes to your email marketing, and have a follow-up plan for having made that intentional mistake. There are mistakes that people make when it harms reputation and harms deliverability that are the mistakes we want to avoid and we never want to do. Maybe it's mistakes around Mother's Day opt-out emails, and then accidentally sending a Mother's Day email to everyone who's opted out from them. There's emailing people that aren't opted in, or adding people to your list like you have been, Rose, where you're not 100% sure, you're pretty sure you've not opted in, you're still hearing, etc. So those are mistakes that we definitely just don't want to make there, because they will impact your reputation, and they will impact your deliverability as well. Harmless little mistakes, I would say, they're not going to impact your reputation unless you're doing it every week and you keep fucking up, then it's a different thing. But would you agree with that, James?
Yeah. The mistake Jamie's referring to is that, we help Quickfire with some of their emails. And in the first one that we ever sent, I messed up the merge tag, which meant everyone was called James.
I remember that.
So I wasn't just assuming that everyone was called James on the list. It was a merge tag error. I actually saw there's a newsletter that I'm subscribed to that last week made exactly the same error, and everyone was called the first name of the founder. And it's this stuff happens, and as Jamie says, it's about how you deal with that. And actually, the follow-up email that we sent on behalf of Quickfire actually got amongst the best engagement that any newsletter we've ever sent from the account has received. So there's a lesson there. And Jamie touched on it. The reason why I actually think it could be baked into your email content plan is because the follow-up email is probably going to be one of the most opened emails you've sent, because when you get that subject line that says like we made a mistake or we messed up or anything like that, you're obviously like the amount of times I've clicked on those emails and then had to go back and read the email that has the mistake just so I can see. But obviously, with that visibility, you have this extra opportunity to really spotlight something. So, you could even offer a discount, for example, as an apology that isn't necessary, but just gives you an excuse to make people feel special and seen.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've seen it before with things on our side too. We did one with an event where the click-through button wasn't the right one. It went to an old event. And Caitlin did this brilliant follow-up email where she included, and she said, we're really sorry, and said, but we wanted to use this as an opportunity to highlight the cheese board that will be at this event. And she got like this really beautiful photo of the cheese board. And there was all these responses with just like, I'd say as a cheese board, that's actually freaking average and things like that. And it was like, it was just so funny, and people were bouncing back and forth, and everyone was booking as they were coming back and making suggestions to how we could improve this cheese board. And I was just such a good way to get people talking. And I was like, next time, let's just keep making mistakes. It seems to be a good way to engage people.
And I would hazard a guess as well that what's so good about those mistakes is that it really humanizes the content, and that 100%. Is what makes it stand out and gets people engaging. And so it's like, how can we bottle that up and then do it without having to intentionally make mistakes every time? How do we humanize the content and get people engaged in a more meaningful way? That's a topic for another webinar.
It is. It 100% is. And going from that, obviously we've talked about some nice examples there with calling people James and sending them cheese board pictures. However, sometimes people send something which is damaging, and it does damage their reputation. So what can brands do to clean up a damaged reputation?
Yeah, there are a few things. I think firstly, we need to identify the symptoms of a bad reputation. If we're talking about deliverability, are we getting people reporting that things are landing in spam? Are our open rates lower than they should be? Like, there are certain emails that should be getting great engagement, and that's your welcome email. So if your welcome email is well below benchmark, we can hazard a guess you're probably having some deliverability issues. And so identifying those symptoms is the first thing. And then secondly, it's about, okay, well, how do we turn this around a little bit? And it can be a little bit of like turning a freight liner, like a big ship. It takes time, and it's about sending signals to these inbox providers. And so there are great tools out there that will help you assess your deliverability, etc. But what it comes down to is cleaning your list. So getting rid of people in there that are completely unengaged after having tried to re-engage them. Contacting, at least in the short term, your most engaged subscribers so that you're getting good open rates and sending good signals to inbox providers. We want to think about what we're putting in our emails. We want to make sure that we are providing value and storytelling and have a good brand voice, all those things that we spoke about. And then just keep doing that stuff. And then eventually we can start bringing in more people, sending to more bigger portions of our list as we start to build up that reputation for sending better emails. It's like I say, it's not a precise thing. It's not as if you can just say, okay, Inbox Club, come in, and in 3 weeks your deliverability issue is going to be fixed. We've just got to do the right things consistently over time. At the end of the day, it's like going to the gym, right? You don't know when you're going to get a six-pack, but one day you just have one because you've been committed. Oh, that's what I'm telling myself anyway.
I love all the analogies happening here. They're great. I want to see how many more we can throw in. It's like this. Is it analogy is the right word? Or am I thinking metaphor?
Yeah, analogy or metaphor. Yeah, one of the two. Oh, yeah, we've got them for days, Rose.
Brilliant. I look forward to more. See how many more you can throw in.
Okay.
I love that. See how obscure they can get as well. That's your challenge.
Nice.
Okay, so sorry if it's noisy, by the way. The heavens have just opened and I have a roof light, so blam.
Okay.
That was just a flex. I have a roof light. It's actually not even raining. So we talked about damaged reputation there, and what are some of the more common mistakes that brands make that do hurt their sender reputation?
Yeah, so I think the most common is it's something that I mentioned earlier. It's treating your emails like a cash machine, and just you're so focused on making the sale, You're so focused about this discount that you're offering that you sort of forget everything else. You know, and that could be, and when I say everything else, I mean everything that we've talked about thus far. So that could be anything from, you know, telling a story, showing a bit of humanity, being a normal person that communicates with other normal people. You know, like email is fundamentally a communication platform. So they neglect that. They might neglect accessibility as well. You know, we see these big, beautiful emails that get sent from e-commerce brands for the most part. And they're just one giant image, which is a nightmare if you need a tool to make the text size bigger, or you're using text-to-speak tools, for example. So, you know, the pursuit of sales and the pursuit of ensuring that your brand image is as consistent in your email template as it is your website, as it is your Instagram. You know, these sort of these vanity brand guidelines that are insisted upon. These are the things that are really damaging in my view. I would say the other one is just, and this isn't necessarily about the email itself, but rather what's going on at the back end of the email system, which is the people you're choosing to order to, so people you're choosing to send to, I mean. So, you know, as Jamie touched on there, you know, one hallmark of good sender reputation, of good email brand, is being quite selective with the people you send to sometimes. You know, sometimes you ought to be sending emails that are only going to your most engaged segments. And the more granular you can be with the emails you're sending and to who, the better. So this kind of like spray and pray approach of just kind of sending to everyone on your list, casting the widest net and hoping for the best, is super, super damaging as well. Because if you're only getting, you know, 7% open rates and no clicks, that's just sending a sign to Gmails, to Outlooks, to email service providers that you are, you know, you're sending rubbish.
Yeah, and I forgot to mention actually that segmentation is something that's super important. I mean, you touched on it there. We just didn't use that S word when talking about it. And I spoke about it a little bit earlier, and I said we want to try and make the emails that we send as relevant as possible for each single person on our list. And segmentation is the tool that we have to do that right now. Sometime in the future, we'll have AI that can tailor it to every, and that's something we touched on in our podcast recently. You know, if everyone gets a bespoke email just for them, how powerful would that be? It's not attainable right now. But so segmenting based, that's how we make our emails more relevant, and that's how, you know, they just are better that way. You know, if I know that it's more relevant to me, it resonates with me, even subconsciously, then I know it's I'm going to enjoy those emails more. I'm more likely to convert and open them in the future. So segmentation is the tool that we have to do that right now, and people should be doing that. If you're still sending to all, you're making a mistake in my point of view. And I said this yesterday. I think there's probably only a couple of occasions where, as an e-commerce brand, you ever send to all, and that's, you know, because you've got some massive news, like a merger or an acquisition or something that's really going to impact every single person on your list, or you're closing down. Otherwise, I think you should be segmenting, and you should, to some degree, and sending to segments.
That's some really good points there, and that segues us beautifully into my next question, which is around the kind of how often brands should audit their list health and deliverability. That's a long word to say this early in the morning. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think if you haven't done it yet, like, do it now. And so clean your list out. Get rid of the people that are just not engaged, or try and re-engage them. If they don't engage, then get rid of them, because you're paying to store them on Klaviyo or wherever. So do that cleaning exercise, but actually the rest can be done automatically. So set up a re-engagement flow, set up a sunset flow in your email platform, and that will just automatically keep your list clean for you. And then in terms of like monitoring deliverability, you should be doing that anyway as part of kind of monitoring your metrics. So bounce rate, super important. Unsubscribe rate, super important. Just Google some benchmarks and make sure that you're around or below that. That, you know, it is as simple as that, but people don't monitor these things. They should be.
Yeah, I think usually if there is suddenly a deliverability issue, you know about it, because, you know, I think at a minimum, most email senders are looking at their open rates, And inevitably, if you suddenly find yourself in a spam folder, you're going to be used to a certain open rate, and it's going to drop, and that's a sign to say, okay, well, that's not because one thing I really want to clarify is that it doesn't really matter what you put. The subject line is important, but it moves the needle like a couple of percent, maybe at best. So yes, you might send an email one day that has a banger of a subject line that gets 40%, and then a not so good subject line might get 37%. If you see a drop of like half, if you go from 40% to 20%, that's deliverability. Don't for 1 second think, oh, I just really didn't do well on that subject line, or like the preview text could have been better. It's not that. That will be a deliverability thing. So if you see a dramatic drop in open rates, that's a telltale sign that something's probably gone wrong.
I'm going to use that for my LinkedIn posts as well. If I suddenly get like 5 likes instead of like 50, I'm going to be like, well, clearly no one's seen this. That's my theory.
It's the algorithm.
It's the algorithm. It's not me. It's not me being boring. It's the algorithm. There's some really good advice there. Thank you. And as someone who has slaved over subject lines for hours before, I will no longer be bothering. I will just put something out there and see if it sticks. Okay, so there were a couple more questions, but I feel like we've answered some of them. So I'm just going to kind of, before we go on to some audience questions, because we've had quite a few coming through, it would be really good to get a couple of simple, actionable steps that an e-commerce brand, or anyone, to be honest. I mean, obviously we're focusing on e-commerce, but there might be some non-e-commerce people, dialed in who are still working their heart out to try and build their emailing list. So some actionable steps that they can take away this week to improve email trust and inbox placement, or a non-wanky way of saying it would be, give them some free tips that can really help them, that they can implement instantly. Just a couple from you guys. Don't care who, both of you, either. Then we'll move on to questions.
We can do a couple each. I'll go first, and then hopefully I won't have said the ones that James was going to say. I'll leave you scrambling for some tips.
Yeah, thanks.
So I think the first thing for me is let's sit down and think about the proposition of our emails beyond just the discount, right? So what are we going to offer? What is going to be the mix of content that we're going to send? What value, storytelling, all of that stuff. Build the proposition. And so when someone signs up to be on your mailing list, yeah, cool, they get the discount, but they're also signing up and expecting other things from you, from your emails. That's the first thing. So work on your email proposition. And I would say the second thing is to I don't know. I think I only have one. I think go with that. Work on your email proposition, because that's going to be more important than almost anything. Let's go with the segmentation. Don't send to all anymore. That's the other action point I will say. Create segments, use segments. And if there's anyone listening to this who wants a bit of help, with how do I segment, what should I segment, drop me a message. I'll tell you what you can do on that front.
Yeah, just dovetailing. Is that the phrase, dovetailing? I don't know. I feel like I'm immediately doubting whether that's actually the phrase. It is, yeah. We've made it one. Just dovetailing off the back of that point. Around 20 to 40% of any list, unless it's been cleaned recently, will have a segment that just never engages, right? So I want to make that clear. This isn't like you're not weeding out 5 or 6 people from your list. When you do this segmentation, you're going to lose quite a significant chunk. And a lot of brands are fearful of that, right? They're worried. They like the idea that they've got 100,000 people on their list. What brand wants to suddenly only have 60,000 people? And the answer to that is the smart brand, right? The one that cares about email deliverability, the one that doesn't care about vanity metrics enough for it to be potentially harming their email reputation. So I know it hurts to chop off that number. If you have a huge email list, it can really hurt to lose potentially thousands of contacts. Do it anyway. You'll pay less, for one thing. You'll pay less, but also your open rates, your click rates, everything will go up, and that's, like we've said already, the warmest signal to email service providers that you are.
If I could sum that up, James, you're saying size doesn't always matter, so don't be afraid to just chop some off.
I couldn't have put it better myself.
Okay, fine.
Yeah.
I'm going to throw in a couple of other practical tips. So firstly, there's an email tool called Litmus. I'd recommend you go to that and look at their accessibility guidelines. They're phenomenal. Litmus actually have a tool. Litmus is relatively expensive if you're not an email marketer. So you know, just slide in our DMs and we can do this for you because we have a subscription. But Limbs have a tool where you can, they will do an accessibility audit for you with their tool. So you send it a test email, it will tell you what you score from an accessibility point of view. I would say accessibility is so important. You know, be the brand that's getting through that's showing up for those people, and you know, your sender reputation will be amazing for them.
Sorry, what's an example of something that would make an email more accessible?
So one I've mentioned, for example, we see a lot of e-commerce brands building their emails in Canva, downloading it as an image, and then just plonking that image into an email and sending it. What that means is that text to speak tools, for example, so these tools that take an email and read it out loud, can't pull from that because all they're seeing is an image. So they can't pull from it. So we need to use native text in our emails. That's one example. Using alt text in our images. If you don't use alt text and you have a linked image, someone using that text to speak will just get the image URL read out, and it takes ages and it's painful. So just throwing in a bit of alt text, like describing what the image is. You can be fun with the alt text as well, like throw in something a little bit interesting, like enhance the experience. Those are two super quick things.
Yeah, I think the image thing is interesting as well, because if people are using dark mode, it won't change how the image looks. It will just present the image as you've designed it, and a lot of people prefer dark mode. So you know, making sure that you use the native text boxes when you're designing your emails in something like Klaviyo is important, because then dark mode will change that.
Some people need dark mode as well. Just you know, it's for me, it's a preference. Some people, like if you have photo sensitivity, for example, like you need dark mode. So there are estimates that say 25% of people have some sort of accessibility issue when it comes to digital content online. So that gives you an idea here. Like if you take that as a ballpark, like imagine
your audience.
If you could suddenly just get through to like an extra quarter, that would be amazing for any brand watching this. So I would say accessibility, super practical. In the weeds tip here, which is just try experimenting with your from name a little bit. From name is one of the most valuable variables that we have when we're sending emails. It's often overlooked. The subject line gets all the love, but the main reason why someone chooses to open an email or not is the from name. And one super simple way of doing this is just, rather than sending from your brand name, as most brands do, pick someone at your company and use their name at the brand name. So, you know, James at the Inbox Club rather than just the Inbox Club. And that little bit of like, this is an individual sending this. And then of course, you're going to write in the first person, you know, so it's going to be I and me rather than we and us. Immediately increases engagement for the most part. I think you'll see, I think if you try that, you will see an initial dramatic improvement in your engagement. Simply because it's a bit frame breaking, you know, people get used to seeing your name pop up in the inbox. People get blind to it as they do any marketing messaging. So if we can change that and change the non-obvious parts like the from name, that's frame breaking, and it's almost like you're sending to them for the first time again. I'd say that I think I'll just leave it with those two. Otherwise I'll be chatting all day.
Some really useful tips in there. So we've got quite a few questions that have come through. So if you're okay for me to start reading those out. Also, is there an email address? I mean, James, are you happy for me to share your email address as one that people can get in touch with if they'd like to learn more about the Inbox Club?
Yes, but in fact, yeah, do Jamie's just because I'm in Ibiza.
Okay, cool.
So if someone, yeah,
okay. Cool.
I wouldn't want to be tardy.
Is it just Jamie at?
Yeah, Jamie at theinbox.club.
Okay, I'm just gonna make that your thing, your name on there, so that people can reach out to you. You know, so that was my fun little idea, thinking, you know, that's ease smart. Here. Cool, thank you. I am smart. So let's go with the questions that are coming through. So first of all is someone who said, I know this is a little off topic. I'd love to know your take on it. How does AI shape the email campaign world, with AI potentially detecting that your email is potentially a sales email? It's a really good question, actually. I don't know if you guys are already coming up against this or if you think it will be an issue in future.
Yeah, I would encourage, Heather, thanks for your question. I would encourage you also to look at a couple of podcast episodes that we've recorded recently. You can find us on Spotify. It's called Send Better Emails. But we talk a lot about AI and how that's going to affect how emails are being received by people, not just how they're being sent by marketers, but how they're being received by people. And the spoiler alert for that episode where we talk about the AI predictions is that if we can get to a place where inboxes are more clever with the way that they are organizing emails in our inboxes, that it's going to be a better place. But as marketers, we have to make sure that we're sending content that is going to tick the right boxes with those AI filters. So things like engagement metrics are important, and so in order to kind of get through those and check those boxes, we need to do everything we've been talking about on this webinar: storytelling, brand voice, connecting with people, humanizing our content, all of that stuff, because those are the things that are going to impact how emails get sorted. And if we can get to a world where we have AI that kind of just puts all of the best emails in front of rows on each day, like that's a good place for the inbox to be in. And we can finally level up from the place where we are right now, where Gmail just has a promotions tab, and we don't really know, like, it's hard to discern exactly how you get out of the promotions tab, and you got the social and the updates tab. Surely we can do better than that. Let's get an AI thing in as soon as possible, and then it can reward good email marketers and good content.
Yeah, that's really good advice there. Thank you. And another question here is, if I want to create a cold email campaign, where should I start? And is it worth buying bulk email from any platform? I don't know what that means. I don't know if that means something to you guys.
Sure. Yeah. The place you should start is not with the Inbox Club, is the first thing. So we don't do that kind of work. I would never buy bulk email database from anywhere. I would focus my time and resources on growing an organic email list where people are signing up on the merit of the content I'm sending. It's a GDPR gray area anyway, but we want to build a good reputation for sending good emails, and to do that, we have to have people willingly in our database who are expecting to hear from us.
Sounds like really hard work.
I would stress, for what it's worth, that whilst we don't do it, that doesn't mean we're inherently against cold email campaigns. They're definitely got ways, and we do have recommendations as well for agencies that are much better at that than us.
Yeah.
Cool. Brilliant. Thank you. You've got Jamie's email address there. Definitely reach out to him. Okay, so I get the sending emails out and trying to create relatability and connecting with the audience, but at what point does this not work anymore?
Cool. So that there's actually a follow-up for that as well. I've been the email lead for brands like Comic-Con and other e-commerce emails. I've done the storytelling and then do a subtle push, but I find it works so far until the audience catches on. So what else should I look into doing to get those click rates? I customize my emails to speak to my audience, and I find they love my email, but they don't ... James, I think you go. Do you want to take that one?
Oh, it's an absolute cliffhanger. They don't what? They don't what? So I would say that variety is the spice of life when it comes to marketing in general. But yeah, that also extends to your emails. You do have to. I think one thing that brands are guilty of, I'm not saying this particular person is, but I think a lot of brands are guilty of resting on their laurels. And what we often find is that when you start taking email marketing seriously, and when you action some of the advice that we've shared in webinars like this, you tend to see a spike, right? You tend to see, because suddenly you're doing things well, and your audience who were used to one thing are suddenly getting another thing, and they're excited to see that, and you see some really good short-term results, and then naturally that can start to dwindle. So I think variety is really, really important, and that means changing your approach sometimes. So I've already mentioned the from name. That's a very practical example. It might also be more fundamental stuff, like the way that you are segmenting, the frequency in which you're sending emails, the way that you're using automations to target people at various points in their journey. I think being it's almost like we want to be treating it like a fresh account every quarter, perhaps. I would say the other really important part of this though is list growth, because email lists will naturally stagnate eventually, in the same way that, like, you know, if on LinkedIn you only ever reach the same 500 people, eventually your engagement will probably start to dwindle a bit, because like people, you know, they're starting to become blind to your posts. You know, like if you're not adding new eyes to your content, it's very hard to keep consistent results. So I would say the need for email list growth is super important, and making sure you have new eyes that, you know, enjoy the novelty, enjoy the uniqueness of the fact that you're actually speaking to them like a person, and that you're sending them high quality, well thought out emails. So yeah, it's a tricky one, but I think variety and list growth are fundamental to solving.
Yeah, and I think that the thing that's tricky about marketing is that we're dealing with human beings, and human beings are fickle, and attention spans are what they are, and what works today might not always work tomorrow. And so our job as marketers is to always be on the precipice of or at the forefront of creativity, and trying to figure out what people want from us at any one point. And that is why marketing is hard, because there isn't just a magic formula that we stumble upon and then we do that and it's fine and that'll work forever. It is about testing, it's about hypotheses, and it's about failing, and it's about learning, and it's about getting it right eventually. And then we have to do all of that again. And that's just the nature of playing with emotions and human beings.
Fantastic, thank you. I've just had a message through from my colleague who said for the end of the "don't cliffhanger" sentence was actually "they don't go to the website" was the end of the sentence. So basically, what Heather's saying is she's struggling to direct traffic from email. So if you have any advice on that, that would be really handy.
So I think some of what we've just said will apply to that, but also there's going to be a CTA strategy here as well. And sometimes we will send emails and the goal isn't necessarily to get people to click. Maybe the goal of that email is to positively impact our brand reputation, our email brand, right? And so within our campaign plan, we'll have this mix of soft CTAs, kind of medium CTAs, and then hard CTAs, and you know, hard sales campaigns, but then some storytelling ones that aren't such a hard sell. And this is just basically me saying in more words what James said, which is variety is the spice of life. And if we can get our campaign strategy and put some variety in there, and make peace with the fact that not every single email we send will have the primary goal of conversions, you know, that's how we then say, okay, well, this campaign is created to get clicks. If that doesn't get clicks, then we need to question, okay, what's our strategy here? But sometimes making peace with emails, not always getting as many conversions as we like, but they are contributing to other goals, is a good place to be.
Brilliant. I really like this question from Katie, where she's put, there's been great recommendations and suggestions so far, largely on the do's. Can you share some massive don'ts? What should brands definitely not do in their email marketing if they want good sender reputation? Don't all speak at once.
Yeah, I'll take this one then. So we've mentioned a couple of them already. I'm trying to think of some original ones. So I guess just to rehash the ones that we have touched on, but maybe not been too explicit with. I would say this segues on nicely from the point Jamie just made. You know, when we are only selling in our emails, we're going to be harming our sender reputation, because our emails aren't going to be that interesting to read, and therefore in the long run we're going to negatively impact our engagement rates. So I would say treating your email list as a content platform, as you would anywhere else, is super important. And brands that don't do that suffer. Brands that neglect accessibility suffer as well. So again, I've talked about some of the pitfalls of what happens when you're not paying more attention to accessibility. Brands that don't have a distinct voice. Maybe this is the unique take, actually, and this is maybe the takeaway here. I would say that, like, actually there aren't that many brands that have terrible sender reputations. There actually aren't. Really, the almost the bigger danger is not having an email brand at all. And so I think there's quite a lot of brands that aren't necessarily doing like terrible things. They're not sending like these like sacrilegious emails that are like breaking every single protocol that we'd recommend. Instead, they're just a bit dull. They're just a bit, vanilla. They're just wallpaper. When we think about sending an email, we've always got to think about how it sits within the context of the inbox, right? People are getting more emails than they've ever received. People's inboxes are flooded like never before. And so it's all the more important that we think carefully about, okay, if I'm sending a palm tree emoji in the summer, is that going to stand me out? If I'm sending a sun emoji in July, is that actually going to distinguish me? Or am I going to be one of like 10 other subject lines in the inbox that also have sun emojis? That's a terrible example. But the point I'm trying to make here is thinking very carefully about, because you will have a brand, right? Every e-commerce store, for example, has a brand, and on the website and on Instagram, that brand will be really obvious. It's often the emails where it's less obvious, where suddenly for some reason people kind of default to this ChatGPT-esque way of talking. And so I would think really carefully. Actually, the inbox is the best opportunity to give more of your personality, because people have opted in to hear from you. So we have more license when we're sending an email to be ourselves than we do in any other marketing context. And so thinking about email from that perspective as not this thing where like I have to adhere to certain principles, but rather this is the place where I can be a little bit more human, where I can talk to people one-to-one. I think that will immediately put you in the top 5% of email senders.
Fantastic. Thank you. I'm going to take one more question, only because I've then got some questions for you guys. There's a couple of questions here asking for links. So my recommendation would be to send it to Hubert to email Jamie with your questions, because we can't actually type back. I don't know about you guys, but I can't actually type back on the comments to send you those links. Or sort of some of the answers to your questions. So I will leave, if you want to email Jamie with your questions, then he can come back to you on all of those things.
Do it.
And thank you also for your very kind comment about how chilled and non-corporate our webinar is. That's because these two are about as uncorporate as you can get, and because I'm chilling here next to my gin trolley, 7 gins in. So, that's the vibe we're going for here.
Yeah.
So a final question here, which is a good one actually, about how basically to put in discounts but not come across as salesy. So how you'd recommend putting that in, because it's a really good point actually. I get it when I have to send emails out trying to push people to book tickets for events. How do you get your sales message across in a way that doesn't hit salesy?
I think one thing, and Jamie, I'll let you come in on this because I know I had the last question. I think one thing for me is that like I really don't want to give the impression that we're like anti-sales here. Like, selling is what email marketing is for, and we are, so when it comes to selling effectively, the hope is that because you already have a good email brand, because you're sending to people who want to hear from you, when you're giving them a discount, you're a legend. Like, that's awesome. In the same way that like, if Jamie discovered that our favorite golf brand was doing 50% off, I would be really grateful if he'd send me a code so that I can go and buy, like we want to be in that spot where like, whenever we're selling, whenever we're giving a code, we're not shameful about it. We're not like burying it under like a huge story. We're like, we've come through for you here, guys. Like, here's a 10% code, you're welcome. And like, people will love it because you've already built an email brand that cultivates a culture around your newsletter and an audience that want to hear from you. So I would say, like, don't be bashful about it. We can get into the specifics of maybe how you present this stuff, and maybe Jamie will do that. But I would say, like, let's start from a place of pride and excitement that we get to share this to an audience that cares, rather than like shame that we're having to sell at all.
Yeah, I would probably just echo that, to be honest. And discounting is like one thing that we have in our wide array of tools in our toolkit for selling, and like I think we need to remember that. And discounting is really effective and a super like helpful tool. Like, it's probably like the hammer. Like, it's the one of the most famous tools in the toolkit, and for a reason, because it's so helpful. But there are other things that we can use and just flex with a little bit when it comes to selling. Discounting, I think we don't want to be the brand that always has some kind of discount available, from my point of view, unless your brand is a discount brand. Those, it's like these sofa adverts where it's like winter sale, and then it's like spring sale, and then it's summer sale. It's like, well, hang on, I can just get it. Yeah. So we need to effectively plan when we're using discounts. Don't just knee jerk into it. Don't just be like, oh, we need to send something out today, let's do a discount. Like, plan it in throughout the calendar, and be clever with the discounting. But yeah, 100% what James said. We need to be selling here in our emails. We just need to be doing it in a more clever, creative, and subversive way sometimes than you might think.
Also, one thing just to add, I thought of whilst Jamie was talking there, is like really like lube up the fact that they're VIPs, like they've joined your list. You've said in the welcome email how you're going to deliver more than just an initial discount code, right? You've hopefully, if you've taken some of our advice here, you've promised like there could be other discounts along the way. Just like really, really milk the fact that like, because you're on this list, we're giving you this code. Like, nobody else is getting this. You're going to get this, because you might even send a discount code only to your most engaged email subscribers, and you might say, look, we appreciate the fact you've been, we've seen that you've been opening our emails, you've been clicking on our emails, we appreciate you, here's a discount. So I think one really nice thing to think about when you're offering a discount is not to just offer a discount for the sake of offering a discount because you need to make sales, but instead finding a reason, this could be something huge, like it's Black Friday, or it could be something tiny and mundane, like I had eggs for breakfast and I really enjoyed them. So, here's 50% off our Easter eggs. Could I have thought of a worse example? That was, I really should prepare.
James throwing out metaphor after metaphor, and you're there talking about eggs for breakfast.
Yeah.
I've let us down there, but you see the point. Like, if we can assign a reason, it might just be like, you're a legend, thanks for opening our emails, here's 10% off. Immediately you're creating a feeling there amongst the subscriber that's like, oh yeah, okay, I feel seen, like this is nice, I feel like a VIP, I'd be an idiot not to take advantage of this.
Right, so there's one more question that's popped up that I want to highlight, if that's okay. It's from it's from Jay Copeland. It says, Rose, is that a pajama top?
You bunch of snakes. I can't believe you'd out me on a webinar, for God's sake. I'm going to lose my job. Oh wait, I'm leaving. What are they going to do? Fire me? Haha, I don't think so. Yes, it is. I am in my pajamas. I'm going to be brutally honest. It's very cold. It's comfy. These are cotton. Very nice. So
yeah, it's not very nice for that person to out you, but yeah, it's what it is.
Yeah, snaky. Yeah, cool. Well, Pajama Clad Road would like to thank you so much for joining us today. Final question for you both from me, and keep it short and sweet because we've got 3 minutes. Sure. Is there an email campaign that you did personally or for a client that was just absolutely banging, that was one of your best? Have you got an example?
Yeah, and I have got an example. And James, we might just want to double up on this example because it's quite strong. Is that we have done plain text emails for
I thought you were going to say that one.
Yeah,
that was a banger.
Sorry, mate. And they always perform really, really well. And it's about just the kind of email that you expect to receive from friends, family, colleagues, etc. Just the pure plain text email. They work really, really well. Stripping back all the design, one person to another person, really authentic, really conversational. Stick that in your campaign mix because they always perform much better. From a standalone point of view, they always perform much better than your regular ones. So put those in your mix because they're important. If you don't know how to do that, just email me and we'll talk about it.
Perfect.
Yeah, I think I'd just say as well, the best campaigns we've ever done it's not been because we've written this just incredible subject line or chosen the right emoji. It's because we've segmented really, really well first, and then we've sent an email that the people in that segment are going to want to read. So we can achieve 90% open rates We just need to be sending it to the right people. And, you know, there are people on your list who will open everything you send. There are people on your list who will open some of the stuff. So, you know, just mastering your segmentation first gives you these incredible like headline metrics that agencies like us put on our landing pages.
Brilliant. Cool. Thank you so much. Well, honestly, it has been a genuine pleasure. Thank you for all of your insights. There's been loads there. So to people who are dialed in or rewatching this, please do get in touch with these guys. I speak as a client. They are absolutely brilliant at what they do. I get so many lovely responses when an email comes out from me, and I get responses coming in just like, oh, this is so funny, this is so clever. I'm like, it's not me, it's James and Jamie. Oh my goodness, I can't believe we're now getting comments about my pajamas. Look, it's so cold, Hubert. Well, I have a Victorian house with a roof light, and it is so cold, in my defense. Genuinely, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much. So please do follow up with the Inbox Club. And for all your Shopify needs, please do come to Quickfire. Happy Thursday, guys, and thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
See you.
Bye.